Okay, it is Tuesday, August 12th, 2025. A couple of people are showing up at the last minute. And I will mention that the next 2 weeks I'll be on the road, but I'll be showing up here from different locales. Next week I should be in Indiana, and then the week after that in North Carolina. Anyway, they'll be here at the same time. So, uh, will you do the Friday thing at Spirit Rock via Zoom? Um, I do the Friday. Spirit Rock is the second Friday, and right now it is at 6 p.m. Pacific time on the second Friday of each month. So, yes, that continues. Um, all right, so let's start with some sitting. Just settling back into a comfortable meditation posture. You can close your eyes or just lower your gaze. Beginning by just feeling how you're holding your body, your posture, the balance and alignment. Just letting things settle a little bit. Just feeling the breath in the body. And having a sense of relaxing, releasing tension. So that can be relaxing the jaw, releasing the shoulders, softening the belly. An attitude of ease, effortlessness. And you might notice where there are particularly stronger sensations in the body. Maybe just picking out a couple spots to just feel, just to feel sensation. Your hands or your feet, your face, wherever there's sensations. And bringing more clear focus on the breath. You can feel the breath at the nostrils or the belly, or just a general awareness of breathing happening. Breathing in, breathing out, and feeling the breath in the body, not necessarily trying to isolate the breath, just letting it be in the foreground of awareness. It's natural that thoughts will pull us away from the breath. When you realize you've lost contact, lost awareness of breathing, just gently coming back. The emphasis is on gentle, not trying to discipline the mind or force anything, just having a sense of orienting toward the breath or inclining the attention to the breath. The breath is part of the whole energetic field of the body. We feel the breath in that context as an aspect of the energy, the nervous system operating. The breath sustaining the body, sustaining the energy of the body. You might feel in the background this realm of energy in the body, subtle, vibratory quality. Even as the breath moves rhythmically in and out. Start to see that our whole experience is known through the nervous system, not just the brain, but the entire nervous system through the body. And that can be felt, can also be known through the sound in the ears, the white noise, sort of buzzing in the ears, also an expression of the nervous system, the sound of the nervous system. And some people pick up the visual manifestation of moving images, the visual manifestation of the nervous system. And many of our non-intentional thoughts are the mental expressions or manifestations of the nervous system. And we're sitting and we realize there are just thoughts running. We don't really participate in. They just seem to be there. But mindfulness is, in a sense, to be aware of this entire system, to bring awareness to particular aspects or to the whole of this experience of energy or manifestations of the nervous system. Right. A couple things I did not mention before I start Dharma talk. There is last week I did an interview of Claude Anshin Thomas, who's a Zen monk and Vietnam veteran with quite a remarkable recovery story, and it's on the Buddhist Recovery Network podcast. So wherever you listen to podcasts, if you do, you should be able to find that. It's there as actually as a video too. Um, and he's going to be the keynote speaker at our virtual conference in October 16th to 18th. So, hope people can make it to that. I'll be speaking there as well, but I'll be mentioning it again. Um, well, I guess as long as I'm promoting things. As I mentioned, this Friday I'm at Spirit Rock, so if you can come out for the day or part of the day, do that. Great to be able to be there in person. Also, the first week of October, I'm going to be teaching in Mississippi for Flowering Lotus. All of that stuff is on my website. Um, so, uh, if you were paying attention during the guided meditation, you might have heard it as a little bit different from my ordinary guided meditation. And that came from some of the thinking I've been doing this week, sort of about what I was going to talk about at Spirit Rock on Friday. Um, and just starting with just the word mindfulness and the definitions of mindfulness. So the first problem with uh, mindfulness is the word mind, I think, um, because I think in our culture, mind refers to your brain, kind of, or you're a lot. It's a lot about thinking, and so people get the idea that I'm supposed to. Well, often people think stop thinking or be aware of my thinking, and that's great. Those are things that can happen. Certainly, awareness of thoughts is a part of our practice, but I don't think that. I don't. First of all, I don't think it's a good translation of the Pali word sati, which even that much of what I've read about it just doesn't do much for me. In my conversation with Claude last week, I asked him about teaching meditation, and he said, "I don't teach meditation. I don't try to teach people to meditate because it's experiential." And that was a really good point that you can't tell somebody how to do this. They have to sit down and try, but we have to give some kind of sort of idea of where to start. And so we use various forms, mindfulness of the breath, uh, mindfulness of the body. There's things like rain, the practice that particularly associated with Tara Brach, although she didn't come up with it, but no, it's an acronym for recognize, accept, investigate, and she says nurture. Originally, it was non-identified, but in any case, we have these forms: loving kindness, where we repeat phrases, and the forms are useful, but they're not practice. They're not the experience that Claude is talking about. The experience is nonverbal, and so anytime we talk about it, we're just talking about it. We're not doing it. And anytime we use those words, again, we're really just trying to trigger the experience. The words are not the experience. The forms are not the experience. So I want to go to this word mind, and people, Buddhist teachers will often say, well, in Asia, chitta, which is the translation for mind, people point to the heart. people point to the chest, my mind, or the mind. And then they start to talk about heart, and there, which is again can be useful, but I think also confusing. And I was at a retreat, sitting a retreat with a group of teachers a couple of years ago, and in talk after talk, they would refer to the heart. Finally, I wrote them a note. Would you explain sort of how you what that means to you? Crickets. No response. They did not respond to that. Because how do you respond to it? It's too vague, really. And so I find it unsatisfactory. Usually heart means like love in our culture. So then it's like, okay, loving kindness, but that's not what. So anyway, all of this is to say that what I was talking about in the guided meditation points more toward how I view practice. That is, that we really paying attention more to the nervous system and the manifestations of the nervous system. So before I go on with that, I want to go to one term that shows up in John Kabat-Zinn's definition of mindfulness, where he says something like it's a particular type of awareness in the present moment, and then he says it's non-judgmental. And when I hear that, I'm like, again, I'm thinking this is about thoughts, because thoughts are in judgments are thoughts generally. I mean, you can say more about it, but in this most basic sense, judgments are thoughts. So again, we kind of get this impression that mindfulness is about my thoughts, and I should stop having thoughts, or I shouldn't have certain kinds of thoughts. Okay, I would replace the word non-judgmental with the word non-reactive. That I think captures the energetic, you know, nervous system practice of it, that we don't react to the things that appear. So let me talk a little bit about how this can work as a practice. And I'll start actually with, Ajahn Sumedho, who, if you're not familiar with, you should be. Or not that you should be, but it would be worth your while to explore Ajahn Sumedho, and I'll put his name in the chat. And Ajahn Sumedho was the first Western student of Ajahn Chah, the great Thai forest master, and he, after some years of practice, he found that he was drawn not to his breath, but to the sound that he came to call the sound of silence in his ears, just listening to this vibration or buzzing or white noise. I referred to it in the guided meditation. Now, there's a story. I've never confirmed it. I heard it from Wes Nisker, so uh, well, whether it's exactly true or not. A story of John Cage, the famous avant-garde musician, composer, going into a recording studio that was perfectly soundproofed, in which there was no sound. And standing in the middle of the room, he turned to the engineer and said, I hear two things. I hear a high-pitched sound, and I hear a low thumping sound. And the engineer said, according to this story, the high-pitched sound is the sound of your nervous system. The low-pitched sound is your heart. It's your circulatory system. Now, again, this is not scientific. However, uh, the high-pitched sound being the sound of your nervous system kind of makes sense. And again, I'm not a scientist or a neuro anything. I'm just trying to find ways to maybe capture experiences. Whether this is whether these are whether I'm scientifically accurate or not is not important. What's important is that I'm pointing to things that you can use in your practice. So don't judge me if I'm wrong. Just use it if it's useful. If not, you know what they say. Take what you need, leave the rest. In case you didn't know what they say, that's what they say. And I don't know if that was originally from the band or not, but anyway, we'll move on. So Ajahn Amaro picked up this practice and he talks about it somewhat. And at one time I was at Spirit Rock for the family retreat, which means it was before my daughter turned 15, which is when we stopped going. She aged out. And Julie Wester, another Spirit Rock teacher, was teaching there along with Ajahn Amaro. And actually, the family retreats were one of the great sources for me of Dharma, interestingly, but and sort of learning Dharma. Now, Julie, this is one of those, this is turning into a shaggy dog story here. Now, Julie Wester was the cook on the very first retreat I ever went on in 1980. She was the cook at Dhammadina, which was Ruth Dennison's center in Southern California. Now, Ruth Dennison was a German woman who learned meditation from Uba Khin, who was S.N. Goenka's teacher. And if you know anything about S.N. Goenka, Goenka taught the sweeping practice, which you've probably heard of. And in fact, John Kabat-Zinn uses it in mindfulness-based stress reduction. Well, the sweeping practice is mindfulness of the body. And Ruth, if you sat with Ruth, she taught mindfulness of the body in this very organic and energetic way of feeling through the body. So it's not just sensations. And this is where we'll come back to Julie Wester, who was listening to Ajahn Amaro talk about hearing this sound. And Julie said, I can't hear that sound, but I feel something like that in my body. And so what I think they are both talking about is the nervous system's manifestation through the senses. We sense the nervous system through our ears. We sense it through our feeling, the felt experience, what's in Buddhism, we call that the touch sensation. And we feel it and we experience it through our eyes. And many people report this, that when they're meditating, if they look, they see like swirls and things, right? It's the it's the zzz. And then finally, so then the question becomes, well, what about thoughts? Well, I mean, we know thoughts are manifestations of our nervous system in a sense. I mean, that, but fully formed thoughts that are intentional have other elements to them. And when you're mindful of them, it's very difficult to just feel them, right? Because they're just like thoughts. You don't really, generally speaking, you don't feel your thoughts. You're just aware that there are words or images in your mind. But as I was pointing out in the guided meditation, it was all in there. When you're meditating and sometimes you realize there's just this stream of stuff going on in your mind of thoughts, but they're not intentional. You're not engaged in them. You're not, there's no will or intention involved. You're not going, oh, what'll I do tomorrow? Oh, I have an appointment at 4 o'clock. I need to start getting ready at 2 so that I can get there on time. That's very intentional, right? Where we're engaged in thinking something through. But there's another kind of thoughts that you feel when you're sitting. It's like, why doesn't this shit shut up? Like, stop, right? And, and that's because you're being reactive, right? Right. And so we're suggesting if you're non-reactive to that, buzz of thoughts, of just stream of thoughts, then it's no more of a problem than the buzzing in your ears or the vibration in your body or the swirling in your eyes. It's just a manifestation of the nervous system. So, and I would say that Suzuki Roshi in Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, uh, when he talks about let the thoughts come and let them go, this is what he's talking about. He says, give your give your sheep or cow a large field, and he's referring to the mind, and he calls it big mind, which all like kind of lines up with space and energy, and just let the thoughts come and let them go. Well, that's a certain kind of thoughts. There are certain thoughts that like really like you've lost touch with your body, with all sense experience, and you're just in thoughts and words. And that's stuff that we have to interrupt and go, oh, there's thinking happening. Let it go. Let me come back to the breath. Let me come back to the body. Let me come back to the sound, whatever it is that I'm paying attention to. So those are two different types of thoughts. They're the ones that are the manifestation of the nervous system, and then the ones that are more intentional. Again, this is not scientific. I'm trying to describe experiences that I'm imagining that are not unique to me. That in fact, you've probably all had variations of these experiences, and depending upon your meditation experience, some of this is like, oh, yeah, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. And some of it is like, oh, that's interesting. I think I can get it. And some of you might be like, I don't know what the hell he's talking about. I'm going to go switch to a different class next time. So that's fine. Take what you need and leave the rest. But this is part of I would say, like my larger project, which many of you have been with me through this, trying to find a way to describe practice in this organic way that isn't form based, that's not about doing this, do that, and what I typically call the felt experience. So this is really me finding some words and claiming that the felt experience is about the feeling the nervous system, essentially. And it's not really important whether that's true or not, or whether um, that's accurate, or even that you understand it, but rather I hope that it helps you to see, oh, right, I can just sit with this energy, this feeling, this stuff. I don't have to get into this mechanical way of meditating, as Claude Unchen Thomas said. It's like, he doesn't teach people forms like that, which, it's really hard to learn meditation if somebody says, well, just sit down and feel your nervous system. Like, no, it takes a while to learn this. But, I'm seeing all these names and faces on this on my computer that I recognize, and I know that this is not your first proverbial rodeo or meditation rodeo, if you will. That you've all been around long enough to be able to absorb this. I think most of you have been around long enough to absorb this and take this in and do something, I hope, constructive, and I hope it's helpful. But it comes back then, if I can, to mindfulness. Like, okay, the thing I like about the word mindfulness is the full part. To be fully with the nervous system, to be fully with that energy, to be fully with that feeling. And then to think of mind as meaning mind, my whole body contains my mind. My mind isn't, this is another one of those sort of flaws of Western thinking, I'd say, that, we think this is the mind. And in fact, the mind inhabits the body. How else would I feel my toes? And further than that, of course, consciousness is unbounded. We don't know what's the container of consciousness. No even scientific explanation for that. And certainly the felt experience of consciousness can be that it is unlimited. And there is, meditations where you do the meditation on infinite space or infinite consciousness. And you're at least having the perception, the felt experience of something vast and way beyond just the body or the brain. Or um, so. So this is all part of just trying to, connect with this practice and make it our own. So I am, uh, I don't know why I'm looking at my watch. The time is right on my computer, but um, just considering whether I want to go a little further with this. Just to say that my talk on Friday at Spirit Rock, Vimala Sar and I will each do a talk, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. My talk is planned to be on the 7 factors of awakening, or 7 factors of enlightenment, the first of which is mindfulness. But it's interesting, if I can say briefly, to just think of the 7 factors as different ways, different aspects and relationships to the nervous system. Mindfulness. Second one is investigation of states. So that's paying attention to mental states, which is like nervous system states, right? Third one is energy. uh-huh. Fourth one is joy, piti. And this is one that people often think, oh, that's an emotion, but it's really energetic. It's actually a felt experience. It's felt in the body. And when the Buddha talks about piti, it's very physical. So it's the nervous system getting brightened. And then tranquility, the nervous system calming, concentration, the mind becoming, the attention becoming stabilized, which is requires the nervous system to be stabilized. And then equanimity or equipoise, where the stability manifests in a non-reactive mind state, which goes back to my original definition of mindfulness. So the first and the seventh factors are partners, mindfulness and equanimity. And so we're sort of containing the whole thing in this way of viewing the factors of enlightenment as manifesting through the nervous system. Ta-da, psh, and uh, that's it for now. So I'll open it up for any comments or discussion, questions. Steve Jones.
Thank you, Kevin. Really super great subject this morning. I know you've had this discussion about the frequency, the high and the low, and I remember we had gone over that a year or so ago. And of course, I suffer from severe tinnitus, as a lot of the folks know, because of all my drumming over the years. And I used to be really upset about it, and now I've really been able to embrace it because when I'm in my meditation now, and over the last, say, 8 months to a year, I've extended my sit time to an hour and a half a day.
Mm.
And because I found that 30 minutes didn't work at all, and then I went to an hour, and then that seemed like it was too short. And so, because of the experiences I'm having, and it speaks to me in the term of mindfulness, is when I'm feeling like I'm being mindful, is when I'm aware of what's going on in my body and in my mind and all these felt experiences that you're talking about. And this morning I had this experience because of all the turmoil going on in the world and in the country especially. So my mind oftentimes just gravitates to that horrendous negative place.
Yeah.
And when I find myself going into that really negative, horrible place, I actually have to interrupt that. I have to
Mhm.
consciously interrupt that and say,
Absolutely.
stop, stop thinking about this. Just go back to allowing yourself to just be, sit here, and then work through the flow. So for me, that's kind of like practicing mindfulness. But
Yeah.
then, then when the ringing starts, that's when I really kind of can move out of that horrible. It's really bizarre. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
I've learned to embrace that because I'm sitting in my meditation studio in the mornings at 5 o'clock, and it's really quiet, really
Hmm.
quiet. So I hear my ringing in my ears. So I love this talk. I love this subject matter because it's very true that if we can be mindful of all that's going on, when that crap starts to happen, got to kind of like move
Yeah.
out of that. So thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Steve. And thanks for the reminder about the needing to at times really interrupt. Like and this is where the forms of practice are important and useful. I'm not suggesting that we throw out forms. I use form in my practice, but not I'm not attached to form, right? And that's the thing. Sometimes we get attached to form in the sense that once I learn to do this right, then I'll be a good meditator kind of thinking, which is once I can just pay attention to my breath. But instead, as you're suggesting, it's like when you realize you're just lost in your thinking, then to interrupt it and say, "Oh, I'm thinking. Oh, let me come back to my breath." And we very intentionally guide ourselves. And maybe we decide, "Oh, let me do some loving kindness because there's a real anger inside me right now, or an agitation, or whatever your practices are, rain, sweeping. Form is very useful when there isn't enough calmness to just feel on this level. So this is the art of practice, is to intuit and sense when I need to step in with structure and when I can just sort of settle and try to move into something more organic.
Yeah, it's really important, especially when I'm doing Tonglen. It
Yeah,
really requires me to really be structured when I'm
yeah,
doing it. So thank you for that.
yeah. Great. Thanks, Steve. And I do want to just respond to John E., who's put in a nice comment about it was a, he felt like I was talking about the five aggregates, and I think that's exactly right. This is another way of verbalizing what I'm talking about. The five aggregates are form, feeling, perception, volitional formations, and consciousness. So these are also manifestations of, we can say, experience through the nervous system. Yeah, thank you. Um, John M.
Hey, Kevin.
Hi.
Um, I just, I really just want to appreciate this particular teaching, but then I was also just observing your teaching in general, and the fact that you delve into these things, I just wouldn't have the patience or it just is, it's great, and I'm glad you're doing it. I mean, it's like because it's very it's just very helpful for me when you talk about engaged thinking. I recognize that. I'm like, oh well, what am I going to have for lunch? What else do I need to do? And the non-engaged thinking is what I sort of labeled it, is
Yeah,
that
that's good.
I'm having some fantasy, it's who
Yeah,
knows where.
yeah.
But I also want to reinforce, I think the idea of saying, well, I don't teach meditation, that to me, that's profoundly arrogant, I think. It's just like, well, okay, so what? I used to study dance,
You
and
said it, not me.
all right, I studied dance, and we had a Balinese teacher come in, and there was no names for any of the movements.
Mm,
She said, just do what I'm doing.
uh-huh.
And I was like, okay, this, and then
Uh,
then you look at Western dance, and there's a name for every single step and form, and it's just so it's just very it's energizing to hear you talk about trying to teach this, and keep going, keep struggling with it. So it's
yeah, maybe
great.
maybe the middle way is called for here. Thank you, John. I appreciate it. And certainly, the reason I do this is because it's my job, frankly. I mean, and I don't mean that in any, I don't mean to trivialize. It's like I'm teaching on Friday. I have to teach on Friday, so I have to think about it. And then I start getting really, I mean, it fascinates me. But if I didn't have to teach on Friday, I probably wouldn't be thinking about it like that. So I do this work because it's my job. But yeah, anyway. Yeah, so
Exactly.
one of the gifts when you start to teach Dharma meditation is that you are forced to go deeper into your understanding of things. Everything I've learned about Buddhism, 90% of it I've learned since I started to teach. I, I'd heard a lot of stuff before that, but it was only when I started to teach that I actually learned it. So, Kate, nice to see you.
Yeah, hi, Kevin.
Hey.
It's so interesting. There is no coincidence because this morning I was doing a meditation from one of the meditations from your class. A couple of years ago, you taught that class, and we had a meditation before each session. And I don't know a lot of the names of things like the factors of awakening, and
Right,
I
right.
really make an effort not to make it into a study.
Yeah.
I just let it happen. So in this meditation, it might be what you're talking about. We're going through breathing, long breathing, short breathing,
Mhm.
breathing with your body.
Yeah.
And the thing that you mentioned this morning, I think, comes from me when you say, watch the mind start to formulate thoughts.
Mhm.
There's something about the mind, and so that brings the mind concept. But then it's followed by calm your mind.
Yeah.
And when I calm my mind, I think I get close to that state that you're talking about, where the thoughts are there, but they're just there. They're
Yeah.
just another element. And I actually visually see a calm line, like calming the waves in the ocean. I
Mhm.
say, calm your mind, and then I think I'm there for a minute.
Yeah.
And this morning was one of those times when I was really able to do it. So then you bring it up, and I'm like, oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
I kind of am understanding what Kevin is kind of saying.
Good.
But I understand the use of words
Yeah.
as the difficulty because, as you know, I teach shamanism, which is an ex, can't say the word,
Got it.
experiential
Yes.
experience. And again, I have that. I can't tell you
Yeah.
what to do. I can open up a space where we can think about it, and then sometimes it'll happen.
Hmm.
And that's sort of the way I think you feel about teaching meditation.
Yeah.
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 So thank you for that. Very relevant today.
That's great. Thanks, Kate. And
Mhm.
and yeah, you're referring to the class on the Anapanasati Sutta, the
Right.
mindfulness of breathing, which I was absolutely thinking about that as I was formulating these ideas. I realized, oh, the this was following the Anapanasati Sutta because it starts with the body and then calming the body and then the second aspect, the second section of the sutta is about feeling, and then there's that key moment where it says breathing in, experiencing the mental formation.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
then breathing in, calming the mental formation. And the mental formation is kind of what we're talking about here. It's not thoughts. But it can manifest as thoughts. So it's an aspect of it, but it's more the nervous system getting calmed in
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
and how everything manifests through that. And as John E. was saying in the chat, this is also the five aggregates. So it's like when feeling it turns into feeling and the authorities on the Anapanasati Sutta say that the mental formation is the combination of Vedana and Sanya, which are feeling and perception. So it gets very technical, but it is to me essentially this about being aware of the nervous system, breathing with the nervous system, and calming the nervous system. And that for me just makes it a little simpler rather than trying to like, well, Vedana, what's perception? How do I calm my perception? The mechanics of that become unattainable. But just like, oh, I feel like the energy in my body, like I feel I'm anxious or I'm excited or I'm, relaxed, and I can kind of feel that much more accessible to me as a way of practicing breathing with the nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's an ongoing exploration for me. I hear a lot of teachers who it feels like they've had their attainment and now they're just teaching from their attainment, and I'm still waiting to get to my attainment. So I just teach the stuff. I'm figuring it out as I go along. No, I mean, a lot of it is that there are all these different ways of languaging this and talking about it, and I get interested in, oh, I like this angle or that angle, and so, yeah. All right. Thanks everybody for showing up, giving my, you know, giving me something to do on Tuesday mornings and purpose to my life. Actually, really that purpose to my life. It's a joy to have a purpose and to have people be interested in the thing that is important to me. So thank you. I'm sincerely am thanking you for your engagement, and I'm just grateful that I have something that people apparently quote want. And boy, a lot of links in there in the chat. If you've been clicking on all the links, you've got about 18 different tabs open on your computer. So thank you, Monica, for your help, and see everybody next Tuesday from
Thank you, Kevin. I
wherever I
appreciate
Thank
am.
you, Kevin.
I
Thanks,
appreciate you
guys.
helping me with my tinnitus. Now I can embrace it.
Yay. Mine is relatively mild, but yeah.
Kevin, thank you. We love Tuesday mornings with you.
Thank you.
See you.
Thanks. All right, everybody.
Talk soon.